Hello, welcome once again to the Band of Heathens and another exciting interview, this time with Mr. Sam Bush, who is about to grace the stage of the Ski Jam tent. Sam, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Sam Bush, and listen here. The Band of Heathens just proved themselves in the world of toughness. Because we walked in what is a heated tent, and I guess this afternoon when my band did our sound check, we were actually, we're peeling off layers, and it was t-shirts. So we would go to dinner, trying to get back in time to hear you guys play some. Walked in, and it was at least as cold in there, if not colder in there. I don't know how you all played, but you're tough.
Fear. Fear drove the bus. It was cold. It was cold.
John Dixon had a whip, actually. He's the one that took the propane away from us.
For some bizarre reason, Sam has allowed us to interview him, which could end up being the biggest mistake of the day for him. But, so, I don't know, I've been a huge fan of your stuff for a long time. The first thing I got turned on to was Strength in Numbers, the Telluride section, which is a great record. If you're not familiar with that, with Sam and Bela Fleck and Jerry Douglas,
Mark
O'Connor, and Edgar Meyer, which is about basically not just the Bluegrass All-Stars, but about any musical instrumentation all-star kind of. How does that kind of stuff come together?
Well, the great thing, back then, Bela and I were playing together in Newgrass Revival. Bela and Jerry and Mark O'Connor and Edgar, they all lived in this little area of Nashville called Sylvan Park, where all the streets are named after a state. So I think Jerry and Bela lived on Dakota. Mark lived just a few doors down from Bela on Dakota. Edgar was right around there. And probably all kind of got started when Edgar, of course, comes from the world of classical music. I now know that he's one of the few classical musicians in the world that can truly improvise. That everybody else, they read music and it's you can't vary from the page. Well, Edgar, even when he does his, which that's how he makes his living in classical music, but his memory is amazing. So we met Edgar, and then he learned more about playing bluegrass two-beat bass, which he really didn't know that much about when he moved to Nashville. Obviously a very quick study, and so he had it down in no time. And it really got started when Edgar did his, back then there used to be a label called MCA Master Series that was on. And I guess Edgar and Jerry were on MCA Master Series. And there used to be this great festival in Nashville. It was free to the public, called Summer Lights. And there would be, 8 different stages. So we played on Legislative Plaza, the Capitol building of Nashville, or the state of Tennessee in Nashville. And so Edgar, I think I can't remember, I guess we called it Edgar Meyer and Friends for a while. Cool. And then we played out in Telluride one time, and they called us the Telluride All-Stars. Well, some of the other cats on that festival weren't so crazy about the 5 of us being the All-Stars, and so then we realized, okay, an MCA Master Series, they had asked us if we wanted to make a record. Bela and I were still actually making what was to be the last Newgrass Revival record, and we started with the concept of, well, how will we do this? I mean, we don't want it to just be a jam session, even though I'd pay money to hear Mark O'Connor improvise for 25 minutes. And so, but Bela and Mark figured out that in a 5-piece band, if each person wrote a song with the other 4, that would give us 10 totally co-written tunes. And if let's say, for instance, I think Edgar and I wrote the goofiest tune on the record called Pink Flamingos, but that no one could refuse the tune. If we felt like it was good enough to present to the other 3, that nobody could refuse it. So that's how we got the compositions together. And really, I am proud of the fact that I think that compositions sort of went out over hot licks, even though there's plenty of hot licks,
absolutely.
obviously.
Absolutely.
I mean, I hadn't listened to that record for about 10 years and just recently put it on the iPod, and I'd forgotten that Mark played a guitar solo on one of those tunes. Just how incredible he is on guitar. He just doesn't play it anymore. He's an incredible mandolin player. So, Marky, stay on that fiddle. But to get back to something I was thinking about, just that I just grew up in a great time because there was so much of a I don't think the boundaries of styles or what am I trying to say, genres were so, okay, you play bluegrass, you play rock, you do this. I think it was more of a true marriage of different styles at that time, and people weren't so concerned about what style it was as much as they were just concerned with playing good music. So I feel fortunate that I got to grow up watching these mandolin players play on TV, because now, of course, there's learning videos everywhere, and I even make some teaching videos for Homespun Tapes. Because I would listen to the Bill Monroe records, and I would think I had it right, but I couldn't figure out how does he make that G chord? I cannot. I mean, it seems so elementary, but I couldn't figure it out. And then finally, I see Bill Monroe on TV, and he does the classic bluegrass G chord. It's like, oh, there it is. Of course, that's it.
Do you think, another thing we kind of talk about a lot is that I think comparing, I guess rock and roll music, or I guess bands in general, maybe from that era, it seems that everybody was really steeped in traditional music to a sense where, like, all the bands had a really good, like, they knew how to play blues, like, they could play a blues song, or, like, if you were playing wood music, you knew how to, like, you knew bluegrass standards, that was, like, kind of it seemed like it's a good launching point, kind of having an understanding of the traditional American music forms, then you kind of, is a vehicle to kind of take that wherever you want to.
Well, yeah, I mean, and where we were talking about the Strength in Numbers band. Oh, yeah, by the way, we tried to call our band Telluride. That was the original name of our band, because we had so many good musical experiences in Telluride. So we decided, let's call it Telluride. And the album title was supposed to be Strength in Numbers. Well, then we found out another band that isn't from Colorado as well, they were like from Alabama or something, had already copyrighted the name Telluride. So we said, well, all right, then we'll call it Strength in Numbers. How's that? But those very musicians and the guys in our band, I mean, it's funny how, as we try to play so progressively and be clever and have clever arrangements and look to different influences and everything, that when Bela and Jerry and I and even Edgar, when we all kind of sit down and start a jam session, and of course Brian Sutton on guitar, bluegrass is the first thing that we start playing, and it's almost like when you're jamming in a bar with people you haven't met. If you call a tune, you're probably going to call a Chuck Berry tune or something, or I'll bet you. I'd be willing to bet you guys can quote certain Little Feat songs like that, Yeah, I mean, or like me and my band, and because Chris Brown on drums and Byron on bass, they actually had a band for a while. Or Byron was the head honcho in a band called Dead Set, and they did all Grateful Dead songs, and that's how we met Chris, because he was one of the drummers. And Byron said, "We got the guy for you," and so they can play any Dead song. Byron probably has an incredible, he does have an incredible vocabulary with Zappa tunes.
Really?
I mean, Byron is really knowledgeable, but Byron is also very knowledgeable about flat and scrubs. And so it is funny how, no matter how progressively you try to get, that's a Buddy Guy statement right there. That's more of a Junior Wells statement. But I saw Buddy and Junior play one time, and Junior said, "Here's a song, if you don't like it, act like you like it." I like that.
That's good.
But I mean, it boils back to the things that, because we all love to play bluegrass, and we find ourselves going back, and it's just like, you remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
And boy, we can fall into it so easily.
It's like a conversation.
And even Bela Fleck, I mean, there's a guy that, who do you can play with? He can play with Chick Corea, I mean, it's amazing. I've heard them do a duet show that is absolutely jaw-dropping. But when we play together, it's like, okay, Earl Scruggs, ground speed, hit it.
Totally, cool.
Yeah. Hats off to the Heathen boys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
You guys, you earned your stripes tonight. Man.
This is Sam Bush with the Band of Heathens at Ski Jam,
Seth,
2009.
Are you emotional?
I
Hey,
really
it's a
like
good
you,
night.
Sam. I really like you. You know, if it was another time, you know, maybe there'd be more free love, but
But it's just too damn cold.
It's too cold.
it's another millennium. So for Relics Magazine, here at Ski Jam, Steamboat Springs, Sam Bush.
Glad
Thank
to
you,
be
Sam.
here. Thank you. Oh boy.